Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the virtual Ossining Public Library. I'm Diana Lennon, Head of Adult Services, and I'm happy to, happy to welcome Ashley Covelli and all of you. It's so great to have you so we can talk about cookbooks. And I just want to mention, so we're here tonight, the 8th, and Ashley will be cooking on February 22nd at 6 o'clock. So make sure you register for that. And then we'll talk about the dates later, Ashley. March. It's the same dates in March. We made it easy. March 8th and 22nd.
Yeah. Yep. And next month's theme is eggs.
Yes. So Ashley, you go ahead and start and jump in with all your great cookbooks.
So hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us virtually. For those of you who I don't already know, I know many of you here, but my name is Ashley. I've been writing about food and recipes at Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen since 2006. I live here in Ossining and I'm a total library fangirl. And so when I was meeting with Diana in late 2020 to try to figure out programming for something that adults would be interested in, I was like, I love cookbooks at the library. Let's do something where we talk about cookbooks. And then, so each month we have a theme. This month it's bowls, and we'll do one meeting, which is tonight, where we talk about cookbooks. You can ask cooking questions if you have brought books that you want to talk about, or you just have favorite recipes or anything. It's very friendly, laid back. Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat if you're feeling shy. We're a very nice group, so you'll be fine. You don't need to be shy, but I understand. And then in 2 weeks from today, so on the 22nd at 6 p.m., we're going to make a recipe around the theme. And this month, that recipe is toasted. I say farro, it might be farro. It's a grain. So toasted farro grain bowls with roasted winter veggies, and we'll do an egg on top. You can do whatever style you like of egg. I like a soft boiled egg with that one. But it's just like a nice, cozy, wintry meal. And I wish I remembered who suggested the theme for this month, but this month and next month's themes were both suggested by a participant. So we're always open to new suggestions and just community around food and delicious things. And thanks for being here. Is anybody, you can either like raise your hand or in the chat. I'm just curious how many people enjoy already eating bowls, like, grain bowls, salad bowls, anything. Yeah. It seems like they're having kind of a moment right now. And so I was really excited about this theme because I've been using bowls as a way to kind of repurpose leftovers, honestly. I've worked from home since pre-pandemic, but my husband's home now. And yeah, okay, good. People in the chat too. Yeah, I think it's a really fun way to kind of reduce food waste, for one, and to use like odds and ends and little bits of things all at once. I particularly like roasting extra veggies or making extra grains or something so that I can have them on hand in order to throw something together easy where all the components are already made for me, and then it's just like assembling and last minute quick and easy thing. Or even sometimes I'll take, when I'm cooking dinner, I'll take the leftover roasted broccolini and some rice and whatever, and I'll put them in a container, kind of like dividing them up into little piles because it looks pretty, but you don't have to. And then it's already together and ready in a lunch size portion for another day. Does anybody have any favorite grains? Because I know grain bowls are really big right now. Just curious. Most of these books have really great information on grains in them. I know quinoa, I learned from one of these books, you need to rinse it every time. Yeah, so there's like a coating on a lot of quinoa. It's not always pre-rinsed. Yeah, and it's not exactly a grain. That's right. I can't remember the actual definition of it, but it's like grain adjacent. Toasting, it's really great. Toasting is good for a lot of grains. We'll do that next month for our next session in 2 weeks with the farro. I'm dry toasting it in the skillet first to add a little extra nutty flavor. Yeah. So some grains and starches you should rinse first to get rid of any extra stuff that might impart like a bitter flavor or any extra dust or starch. Yeah. I'll start with one cookbook, and then if anybody else has brought a cookbook that they'd like to talk about, I'm more than welcome you to jump in and discuss. I can talk for an hour straight, but I love hearing from you guys too. So, and if I get talking too fast, feel free to tell me like, hey, slow it down. I get a little excited about food sometimes. So the first book I picked out is Bowls of Plenty. And all the books that I'll talk about tonight and many more are in the PDF that you should have gotten when you registered for the class. So this book is by Carolyn Carreño, and this book has so much great information. It's recipes for healthy and delicious whole grain meals. The author is a James Beard award-winning food writer, and she's written for Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, Gourmet, Savour, the Los Angeles Times, so very much knows what she's talking about. And I thought the dedication on this was really fun. She says, this book is dedicated to the individuals out there who find the time to cook for themselves and their families and friends, because despite what many people say, the food and how and with what it's made does matter. That was nice. Sometimes the dedications in books can be really interesting to read and tell you a little bit about the author's personality. And I've mentioned before in previous discussions, but one of the things I like about this program is it taught me to look at cookbooks differently than just like, oh, let me see what's the recipe for red beet and quinoa salad. Let me make this recipe. I've kind of moved away from just doing that to reading them kind of as like a story. You get a lot of really interesting information about either the background of the author or the specific cuisine or the ingredients, but then the head notes. So in each recipe, like this little bit that's above the recipe, a lot of times they offer some really interesting insights into particular ingredients or techniques. And it's, even if you never cook from it, it's a really cool way to learn more about food. So this book, she's got, she calls herself a flavor first cook. So she said, while she does a lot of health food, she says she comes from a gourmet point of view, but not a health food point of view. In a nutshell, I eat blueberries because they taste good, not for the antioxidants they contain. So she really is focusing on the taste and not just like eat this because it's good for you. And I think I personally like that because I think there's a lot of really good nourishing foods out there. The beginning of almost all of these grain books talks about different staple grains to have in your kitchens. But there's like spreads on the different types of whole grains. This one just talks about the difference between a whole grain and like ones that what makes them go from a healthy carb to just a regular carb. And there's information on basic cooking instructions for all of these different types of grains. So she's got like barley, black rice, brown rice, bulgur wheat, buckwheat, all sorts, oats, millet. If you're looking locally for resources for a lot of these more, some of the more interesting grains, I know Green's Natural Foods in Briarcliff has a lot, Whole Foods, DeChico's, anywhere where they have a big Bob's Red Mill section will have a lot of different grain options. But so this book is broken down. She's got a whole section on breakfast bowls, and it's not just like oats, because I think a lot of people just kind of think of oats as a breakfast bowl, but she does stuff like rice bowl with a poached egg, slow roasted tomatoes, and feta. And she talks about the different components, like these slow roasted tomatoes. You know, she says if you could use sun-dried tomatoes instead if you want, but she gives you the recipe for these tomatoes. And I mean, like I would eat these on anything. It just looks so good and caramelized. These, she says, you cook them, slow roasted tomatoes are like tomato candy. Cooking them this way in a warm oven for a long time extracts the water from the tomatoes, which concentrates the flavor. Slow roasting can make an average out of season tomato taste pretty darn good. And then she talks about different ways that you could use them. So a lot of the books have toppings kind of like this that you can make in advance, keep them in the fridge, and then you have them ready, because you don't necessarily want to go to make a bowl and then you need to bake something for 2 hours. It's not exactly a lot of it needs a little bit of a prep ahead of time.
I have a question.
Yes,
In
please.
general, for vegetables, if you slow roast them, do they caramelize as well as if you do it at a higher heat?
I don't think that they tend to. I usually like
Maybe
my
just the high
default.
sugar
Yeah,
stuff.
my default would be like 425 with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, just so it's like a blank canvas kind of, and you can add other flavors to it. But I feel like that temperature, when it sits for long enough, you'll get some good caramelization. Sometimes they'll even, depending on the vegetable, just broil it to get some good like crispy bits. But I feel like slow roasting is nice. Also, you get like really soft, tender vegetables, but I don't know that they'll have that same like pop that something has when it's a little charred. You could, though, like if you had slow roasted vegetables and you wanted to get them a little extra toasty, you could pop them under the broiler at the end.
Okay.
If you have one. I just make sure if you are broiling that you're using a pan or casserole dish that's able to go under the broiler, because that heat is really, really hot. And sometimes I see people broiling in glass and I'm like, oh my gosh, please, please don't break. Because not everything is safe up to that temperature. Not to call you out, but Bambi might actually have some input there too. Maybe.
Oh, you're actually right about that. But I like mine like high temperature because I don't have patience for one. So I like it like at 400, 15, 20 minutes, I'm done. But for nuts, I like it slow. So I'm kind of weird that way. So
yeah, well, and those also burn a lot easier. So you want to be sure to watch those. One of these cookbooks talked about a technique where, since home cooks don't have these like industrial strength ovens, they have you put a baking sheet on the bottom heating element, like not on a rack, but on the actual element on the bottom of your oven to get it really scorching hot. And that's supposed to like really char the vegetables, which I thought was interesting. I haven't tried it. I have a baking steel in my oven that's like, it's kind of like a pizza stone, but it's just a big thick piece of steel. And that retains the heat really well in the oven. So I might consider putting a baking sheet on there. I'd have to see. You have to like really watch it though, I feel like. But that was a really great question. Thank you. So there's, in the breakfast section also, there's a lot of interesting, like this one's a rosemary buckwheat crunch with fresh ricotta, and I'm like, an excuse to eat ricotta for breakfast. I'm completely on board with that. And I think this picture really illustrates one of the things that makes bowls really great is having varied textures, having something crunchy up on top and then something creamy, and just having those contrasting flavors and textures really makes it more interesting than just leftovers in a bowl. And let's see. So she's got the breakfasts. There's a whole section on salad bowls. A lot of them have some grains in them also, like this one. But she uses a lot of quinoa, millet, rice salads, quinoa, spelt, wild rice, which isn't rice, apparently, farro sorghum, and toasted crispy rice in some of these. Sprouts. There's just a lot of everything is so colorful too. Radishes are something I like keeping on hand for putting on top of all sorts of things, including bowls, for like a pop of color and some crunch. This salad I actually marked, I want to make this one. It's a rainbow carrot salad with millet, feta, and lemon yogurt dressing. And shaving the carrots with a vegetable peeler instead of chopping them, slicing them, just makes it look more interesting. And sometimes you can make an ingredient more fun by just presenting it in a different way. So this particular recipe, obviously, if you have rainbow carrots, I know you can get them at Trader Joe's or the farmer's market, but the different colors make it more interesting. And she mentions here using all the parts of the ingredient, like the vegetable. It's really, it's a good way to not waste food, but also it's respectful for the ingredient. And she said, I use the tops from carrots as the greens in this salad, but truth be told, carrot tops don't have a lot of flavor, so I tangle them together with parsley. This way I can feel good about the fact that I'm not wasting the carrot tops, and also about the fact that my salad has flavor, which I thought was like a nice bit of honesty, because I've seen like carrot top pestos and stuff, and I've just never, I haven't found a recipe that I think is great for them personally.
They add anything to like a soup or a broth stock?
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I save the tops. I don't know if you buy carrots with greens.
I'm
So-
thinking of celery.
Oh, no, but
That adds flavor.
celery leaves are great in there's a Persian meatloaf recipe that I make, and it uses the celery leaves. So now whenever I buy celery, I always look for the ones that have leaves in them. Because it's interesting. It's got the celery flavor without being pieces of celery. Also good in a Bloody Mary if you enjoy those.
You can buy carrots with the greens on them.
Yeah, I often don't, just because I think because I don't know a good way to use them.
Yeah.
But I know like beet greens, I used to at the farmer's market years ago, I would say, oh, will you cut them off for me so that I don't have to just cut them off at home? And then I realized beet greens are delicious. I'm gonna get, this recipe is really good. Beet greens with like just sauteed with garlic and I think like red pepper flakes. It's a total game changer. And now they take the beet greens off at the farmer's market a lot of times, and they like sell them separately. But yeah, I make garlic chips. So you slice it the garlic really thinly, and put it in the pan while the oil is still cool. And then you slowly heat them up and you get them nice and green. And then I take the garlic chips out and then cook the beet greens. And those would actually be great in a bowl. And that's a thing that you could make ahead of time and have them ready in the fridge to add to something later. Yeah, beet greens. I would have never, sometimes it doesn't cross your mind until you try it. And then you're like, oh, I've been wasting this ingredient my whole life. Oh, speaking of beets, that's a red beet and quinoa salad, and got them in radicchio cups. That's very Valentine's Day, I feel like. So this cookbook I thought was really nice. It has some really interesting Italian type of flavors. This one's an Umbrian farro and bean salad with celery leaf, pesto, and mozzarella. So there's some more celery leaves. An interesting way to do that. And the pesto, it says to not use the really tough outer green leaves. Although I don't know why, if you're blending it up in a pesto, why it would matter. I don't know. Then the main course bowls section in here, some really interesting things with like tofu. That's a sambal tofu quinoa bowl. And my son likes tofu. I like tofu. My husband's like, he'll eat it, but he doesn't love it. And this, she says, I'm a card-carrying, fat-loving, flavor-hoarding omnivore. Plus, I once read that tofu, being as processed as it is the white flour of the health food world. All of that to say, if I'm going to eat tofu, I'm going to eat it for one reason, because it tastes great. So she like really works on making sure the flavor of the things are good. So I appreciate her dedication to taking things that can be kind of bland and making them interesting. It's got lots of things that have pickled veggies on top. The photography is really lovely in this book too. And I'm a sucker for a runny egg. But I really enjoyed this book. The other section of this, aside from there are dessert bowls and everything, but she's got a couple kind of like choose your own adventure, build your own farmer's market inspired bowl. And so it's a little tricky to read with the way that the photography is underneath it, but she's got sections for proteins, grains, vegetables, and condiments. So you can kind of pick one or a few from each section, and it gives you suggestions for how to make a bowl in that theme with ingredients that work. So there's the farmer's market bowl. There's a couple of different ones. There's a Middle Eastern bowl. And if you're not like super into cooking, but you still want to eat like this, you can buy things prepared. Like a build your own Middle Eastern bowl, you could buy already made hummus. They have a lot of really good like pre-cooked grain mixes that are in pouches that you can just microwave them for like 90 seconds and they're ready, but they're shelf stable. So it's like, I use those kind of frequently for a quick filler for our meals at home. There's nothing wrong with repurposing like restaurant leftovers. Like you don't have to be some hero who's making ketchup from scratch. And like I've done that once. It was a lot of work. It was good, but I'm like, I don't need to make ketchup. Like I can buy ketchup. So yeah, I think just like experimenting and having fun with it. There's some charred broccoli. I would make mine even darker than that probably. Yeah. So that's the first of the books. I guess I'll show you a dessert just so you can see them. That's not a bowl. That's just a grain. This is a cake made with teff. I'm like, that's not something in a bowl. I don't know how it fits into the theme. Dessert bowls. Coconut, black, and wild rice pudding with mangoes and macadamia nuts. Like that looks delightful. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I think it's an interesting kind of overview of lots of different types of grains, lots of different types of ingredients, and meat is in a lot of the dishes, but it doesn't have to be. It's really easy to swap things out. Does anybody have a book that they would like to share next? Otherwise, I can keep going, but I feel like maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I just, this has a section on bowls and salads. It's called the Weekday Vegetarians. I don't know, Diana sent this link probably about 2 or 3 months ago. She's a local author, Jenny Rosenstrack. She's the author of Dinner, the Playbook, and Dinner, a Love Story. And I went to her talk, thanks to Diana. She had sent the email. I think it was through Dobbs Ferry Library. But yeah, it's kind of a fun book. The thought is that if you want to eat healthy or make a difference in the planet, just try and start out by being a weekday vegetarian. And again, she has some fun bowls in this section too, with this one is wheat berries and crispy tofu, grapes, arugula, and feta. And then she gives a little story ahead of time too, to backstory of how she came up with this recipe. Yeah, so it's just kind of a fun book that does touch on, a little bit of bowls and salads and different thoughts for the weekday. And then, the idea is that on the weekend, if you want to indulge or have meat, you can. But she said this wasn't as hard as she thought, having 2 teenage daughters. It says 100 recipes and a real life plan for eating less meat. And she finds even on the weekends, then she tends to stay away from or doesn't, chooses to not eat meat. But yeah, the nice thing is it's vegetarian, but then she gives you options if you do want to eat meat, and then also add it in if you have someone that's, like a child or somebody who would, still likes to eat meat, as well as then if you want to make it vegan. So she gives you all those different options. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else went to that talk. It was interesting. And again, she's a local cookbook author. You might be familiar with her. I don't know, Ashley, you are?
Yeah, one of my friends used to live across the street from her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just was looking at some of her bowls too, and that's why I just wanted to share it from the library, of course.
That's great. I love that too, because like my family's omnivorous. We eat both meat and plants, but we're trying to eat. I'm especially trying to get us to eat a little bit more meatless meals, just environmentally. But I love like bowls for the customization fact. It's like so much easier for people. I feel like especially if you have picky eaters, or if you have, like one of the books was saying that when they're doing the bowls for their family, they'll put all the ingredients out on the table and kind of have make your own, and the adults will put everything together in the bowl, and the kids will have like a pile of it over here and a pile of it over here, and very separate because it can't touch. But it's like still a good way. They tell their kids, try a little bit of everything, like at least try it. And I feel like that's a good way to get them involved in that process too. Yeah. I know my family, my husband and my 10-year-old, they both like to eat like canned like sardines and stuff. I like canned tuna. I like some canned fish, but they're like super into like all the crazy, not crazy. They're just like different for, especially for a 10-year-old, like not many of them eat this stuff, but with different seasonings. And those are great on top of, you know, a bowl of like some leftover rice and some veggies and whatever, and just throw some sardines on top of there. I mean, if you eat them, our cat always looks at them when they're doing it too. She's like, you feel free to drop some of that.
But you're getting your omega-3s, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
This one is in the bowls realm. I just wanted to mention it quickly. This is also written by somebody that I know from like the food blogging world. I don't know if the library has this one. This is my copy, but it's called Beautiful Smoothie Bowls. And this is a really pretty book, and it's all about, my husband also doesn't think that eating smoothies out of a bowl makes sense. He's like, why don't you just drink it? I'm like, because there's toppings. He's not buying it, but there are, so, you know, they have like, you know, doing a puree of frozen ingredients underneath and then topping them with interesting things in different patterns. This is it's a really fun collection. She's got like chocolatey things, fruity things. She's got a key. There's little icons for vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo, I think is the P. And just like some of the cool, like, you know, they're very pretty. I feel like very much a summer thing for the most part. I don't know that I would want a smoothie bowl so much in the winter. Although I drink cold beverages a lot, so who knows. Kids would have a lot of fun doing things like this. It could be like an interesting way to get them to eat a little bit more fruits and veggies at breakfast time maybe, or for dessert. It's a really great way to use in-season produce or frozen produce, because most frozen produce, they freeze it when it's peak ripeness, so it's actually fresher than sometimes the stuff that you can get at the grocery store. It just might cosmetically be a little bit less, like, you know, once it thaws, it might not be quite as pretty as something fresh that you would buy. But so yeah, this is just an interesting mix, assortment of recipes that I thought I would share. She's got a lot of information up front also about the different types of superfoods, and eating the rainbow. And yeah, I feel like for me, when I have smoothies though, like for some reason, I miss chewing things. I don't know. So maybe this is kind of like a best of both worlds, because like you're drinking it, but you're also still getting something kind of substantial to eat. All right, did anybody else have a book that they want to share, or just like a particular, like a restaurant bowl that they like, or anything like that?
For a while, in my area, Arby's had some bowls, and then it was like one of those limited time things, and they don't have them anymore, but they were really tasty for a fast food restaurant.
Like what types of combinations do they have?
Gosh, I don't remember I think they had two different bowls, but I don't remember what they were, but it was like grilled chicken and rice, and it had lettuce and tomatoes and gosh, it's been a while now, so I don't really remember. Oh, it had like grilled red peppers, and
Nice.
It was really tasty.
It would be nice if more.
They gave you a big packet of salad dressing to make it unhealthy.
Well,
but it was good.
Well, were they topping it with onion rings, or like, you know, not that may be good too, you know.
That would still be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember Umami? That was in Croton.
Yeah. I love
they had some great bowls. They had like I can't remember everything in it, but like a Korean bowl, rice and Korean beef, maybe. Oh, that was really good.
Yeah, that place.
We were really bummed when that closed. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, now Diana is talking my language. 'Cause
Yeah.
every time, obviously I'm Asian, so every time you talk about bowls, the first thing that comes to my mind is rice bowls because
Mhm.
we grew up with that, rice bowls and noodles. So this is actually exciting for me to be part of because I learn different kinds of other bowls. It's not only like Asian bowls, Bambi. It's not only your rice bowls and your noodles. There's also superfoods and vegetables. So I just think, anything that you put in a bowl is actually beautiful.
Yeah. Give me what's one of your favorite Asian style bowls?
I'll be honest with you, it's actually if I'm hungry and I don't want to cook, it's furikake. I don't know if
Mhm.
you're familiar with it. It's in a jar, and I just really just eat that rice and that.
So it's like a
Um,
mix of like seaweed pieces and
um,
sesame seeds and spices. There's different flavors
salmon,
too, right?
salmon egg. You'll be surprised in what's in it actually.
Yeah,
So that's my
if you,
lazy bowl, but I love it.
but that's, I mean, you're using ingredients that add a lot of flavor, but they're only a couple ingredients because it's already like a blend of things. Like if you use an interesting sauce or a condiment like that, I think that's a really smart way to add more flavor to things.
Yep.
Yeah, if anybody is near like an H Mart or any type of Asian or ethnic grocery store, there a lot of times you can find like a whole section of that, just like tons of jars and different sprinkles. They all like look similar, but the labels are different colors. And if you have the Google Translate app on your phone, because sometimes it's not in English and Korean or English and Japanese, you can just hold the camera up to it and it'll live translate. It's not always perfect, but it's pretty impressive. I mean, technology is pretty awesome.
Just one advice: don't look at the salt content. That's all.
That is a very good point.
That's it.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a lot of really great ingredients at ethnic markets that you can use to add flavor to different types of bowls, even if the bowls don't lean in that direction. Even if you're just taking like grilled chicken and rice and broccoli, you could drizzle like a Korean barbecue sauce on top, or like there's so many fun ingredients. My husband's been getting Kewpie mayo, so it's like a little different than American mayo. It's sweet, right? I feel like it's a little sweeter. You can mix a little sriracha in there and make it a little spicy. There's so many fun options in there. There's a lot of interesting like pickled vegetables. I know there's like Korean pickled radishes. There's just all sorts of fun stuff that you can add in there and like clean out your produce drawer. Yeah. So I think my favorite book that I checked out this time was this America's Test Kitchen Bowls, Vibrant Recipes with Endless Possibilities. In the back of it, it's a healthy, customizable way to cook every day. So the different sections, it's master meal prep with make-ahead components, simplify any recipe or kick it up a notch, and 63 inspiring toppings and sauces. 2 serving bowls reinvent weeknight dinners. So all the recipes are for like 2 servings, so 2 bowls. So their intention is either you make it for you for tonight and then you have another portion for lunch later in the week or whatever, or you can 2 adult servings, or you could double it easily. But this book is like, I mean, America's Test Kitchen, like they do a lot of research when they're putting together their recipes anyway, but they have some really interesting sections in here. So they have the bowl approach combines veggies, proteins, and a tasty sauce over a base like greens or rice for a cohesive meal that satisfies with every bite. And they wanted to find an unfussy way for people to make them and make them often at home. So in the introduction, they have 5 tips for better bowls. And these are just like quick tips that will help make your kitchen a little more bowl making friendly. So raid your pantry and fridge. Using what you have on hand as a starting point is the key to mastering the bowl lifestyle. Make ingredients ahead. Having bowl components already prepped makes improvising bowls incredibly easy. Prep a few bases and sauces or toppings at the start of the week and you'll have instant meals with variety for your weeknight dinners. Vary colors and textures. So adding unique arrangement of colors and textures will make your bowl visually beautiful as well as delicious. Try out a new diet or cuisine, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, there's a bowl for everyone. Challenge your palate, explore recipes from bold and exciting cuisines, and try out something new. And then choose quality over quantity. Packing tons of toppings is one way to go, but we think you're better off adding a few quality, fresh ingredients that will taste amazing. So they have lots of charts in this book. There's like, they're very into like, so this is, if you have this ingredient, make this. So if you have chickpeas, make the pantry chickpea bowl. If you have rotisserie chicken, make the buffalo chickpea bowl. And they give you page numbers to reference for those things. There's tips on how to cook things from your pantry, swaps for recipes, like if you don't have one of the ingredients. So like at the end of each of the recipes, like this one's a tofu sushi bowl. So the intro always says why this recipe works, and they give you a really thorough breakdown of like why with all of their testing, this combination works really great. And then at the end, there's customize it. So for this particular bowl, kick it up a notch. You could add pickled ginger. Simplify the dressing is use a store-bought sesame vinaigrette instead of homemade. So they give you kind of options for either different tastes or doing more or less work. So some of it's like, you know, you could make your homemade ketchup or whatever. This fattoush salad bowl, which we made something like that was that with this group last month? Salads, yeah.
Yeah, we just did that, remember? Yeah, that was great.
And this is like, again, same concept, but this looks totally different than the ones we made last month. So it's kind of just shows you like similar ingredients, you can do totally different things. But so this one, customizing, it's like instead of tahini sauce, you could do a lemon vinaigrette. Instead of escarole, you could use romaine. Instead of pita crumble, you could crumble store-bought pita chips. So giving you kind of different options to work off of. They have ways to take your bowl to the next level. So they talk about adding pickled fruits and vegetables because they add like a nice tangy pop, and the color is usually really interesting. So they have recommendations, store-bought or homemade, like quick pickling carrots, grapes, and onions, jalapenos, and then you can add them. And pickled things keep a lot longer in the fridge. So if you wanted to make a batch, you could keep them in the fridge and just add them onto things throughout the week or a couple weeks. I know I do, there's a taco, sweet potato black bean taco recipe I do that's got quick pickled red onions. They're really easy. It's just like lime juice, I think salt and red onions. Those keep really well for several days. Buy one sauce, make one sauce is another tip that they have. So, you know, doing 2 different sauces and not making everything from scratch. I think that's a really smart tip. Making one crunchy topping that lasts. So a crunchy element makes any bowl better. Store-bought options are fine, but try making your own. And things like they have a savory seed brittle and crispy shallots that stay fresh for weeks. So that's kind of nice to know. And if you're making bowls and you're making them ahead of time and assembling them, I would recommend putting any crunchy toppings separate and just adding them on, like just a separate container and adding them on at the end, like right before you serve it, so they don't get soggy and sad. They have this great diagram that's the anatomy of a bowl, and it talks through all the different components, the base, the protein, the vegetable, the sauce, and the crunch. And they have all sorts of recipes for all of the different sections. Pantry Staples, they talk about different ways to arrange things. So whether you're doing piles, rows, if you want to do avocado rows type of situation, adding texture. So I'm not talking to you, Siri. I thought I was talking to it. Lining things up, drizzling things, fanning out fruit slices or vegetables. So just a lot of ideas that maybe you wouldn't think of unless you saw like, oh, like I could fan out some slices of pear instead of just chopping them up and throwing them in there just to make it look a little more interesting. But they have, the recipes look so nice. They've got this green goodness salad bowl, and they so their green goodness dressing, let's see, is on 224. And then you could, if you were to make this bowl, you could use that sauce on more than one thing. And that's in the back. They have a whole section on bowl basics and the sauces. So there's just tons of different sauces and dressing recipes in here. So they're creamy, green, good. Oh, this one does say green goodness, goddess. Now I'm all tongue-tied, sorry about that. It's got lemon juice, tarragon, buttermilk, yogurt, sour cream, lots of herbs, garlic, anchovy, and it gives it that bright green color. So inside there's different salad bowls. That one's got buffalo chicken. It's got steak salads, and you can see these are two salads that have meat and vegetables, but like just presented totally differently. Lots of veggie bowls, and this is something easy too. Like if you don't want to have a meatless bowl, you could totally add some grilled chicken or swap out the chickpeas for chicken. They have grain and bean bowls, some really smoked trout and couscous. So they do use a lot of different grains in this one. They do a lot of mixing of grains and greens. Egyptian barley bowl. One of these books was talking about the different types of bowls to use. So if you're doing something like a main course or a salad, something with not a lot of liquid, a wide, shallow bowl is usually good because then you can kind of grab everything without everything falling over the edges of the bowl. But if you're doing something brothy or like creamy oats type of thing, a deeper bowl is usually a little better. Polenta bowl with broccoli rabe and fried eggs, and then like just looks so good. And this is like comfort food. Why does this watch keep doing that? Sorry. So each of the separate components they have in the back if you want to learn how to make just that component and then build your own bowls. So you've got under bowl basics, there's tons of different sections. You've got grains and noodles, proteins, vegetables, toppings, and dressings and sauces. So if you wanted to just learn how to make their perfect poached chicken, you can go to page 194 and then it'll walk you through how to do just that. And so, let's see, when you get to that, it tells you how much it makes if it's enough for 2 bowls. But it's like very good basic cooking for lots of different types of proteins. You've got poached chicken, seared chicken, roast pork tenderloin, sauteed shrimp, oven roasted salmon, and then they give you variations. So like for the sauteed shrimp, standard sauteed shrimp or with chipotle or lemony. The salmon, there's a variation for juniper and fennel roasted salmon. So kind of taking the same principles, but just switching up a little bit to make them more interesting. There's also spice rubs. So there's a whole section on different spice rubs that you could use either on the meats or on the vegetables. And again, you can totally buy these things too. If you don't have to make everything from scratch to feel like you're like cooking stuff at home. It's totally fine, especially if you're already frazzled and intimidated about thinking about making all these things. You don't have to make your own grill seasoning. You can just buy it, and then maybe one day you make your own if you really get into it. Different vegetables, so roasted beets, sauteed broccoli with garlic and thyme, roasted butternut squash, lots and lots and lots of different veggies. And you can see like the rainbow carrots from that other book, just doing them differently like this, where they're like just cut in half lengthwise, makes them look totally different than if you're shaved raw on a salad or cut into coins. But yeah, and then there's quick pickles. So they have quick pickled grapes, fennel, quick sweet and spicy pickled red onions, quick pickled carrot ribbons. So lots of different options for little things that you can add on top to add a little flavor punch. And dressings and sauces. So they have vinaigrettes, pomegranate honey vinaigrette, sesame scallion vinaigrette, sriracha lime sesame sauce, Thai chili jam. So lots of interesting, like from all over the place, not just from one region, which is kind of cool. Like they have homemade tahini sauce, which I usually buy the squeeze bottle of tahini because it's easier, it doesn't separate. But yeah, it's just tahini, water, lemon juice, and garlic. And they give you suggestions for what recipes it would be good to use it for. So tons, this has so much information, and you can look up in the index, they have things listed by ingredient like eggs, or by the title of the dish like fattoush salad bowl, or by the type of bowl. So like noodle bowls are all under N also. So like whatever section you go to, you'll find the recipe you're looking for, which is pretty cool. And then they have, for all of the components of all the recipes in the back, they have the nutritional information if that's of interest to you. So they have it all broken down in the back, which is, it's kind of nice that it's not clogging up the recipe pages, because that would be a lot of information, but it's there for people who want that. So yeah, I really think that this is a really fun cookbook, lots of colorful ingredients, and great techniques just for like learning how to cook different individual components, which I think is helpful for a lot of people. Yeah, so that is,
Actually,
yeah. No,
go
that's
back to the polenta. What vegetables is added there? I'm not a polenta person, so I was
Yeah.
just curious. So what vegetables she added?
Let me head to the P section for
That's right.
polenta. It's not, oh yeah, polenta. So they have polenta with broccoli robin fried eggs. Oh, and wait, this is like super nerdy, but I love it. When one of the pages in the index has a page number that's, oh, it's not going to focus on that, that's italicized, that means there's a picture on that page of the recipe. So they list the page numbers, and so that you know that there's, so on page 100, there's a picture of this recipe, and it's also on page 101. So that's that one. So this polenta is a creamy Parmesan polenta, and that's on page 192. So that's in the basics section. It's water, salt, baking soda, cornmeal, Parmesan cheese, and butter. And that's it. You can also, I find polenta is good. It can be very bland sometimes, so I think you like need to add a little something interesting to it. They do also sell like tubes of prepared polenta. They look like, it's like a big fat tube in the produce section, and you can slice them and grill them, and that's really interesting too. I've done that. Like my son he doesn't like the texture of it because it's kind of like gritty a little bit.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but he likes steel cut oats and stuff. So it's like there's some texture in between a steel cut oat and polenta that he's just like, no. But there's also so they tell you also how to make a big batch of the creamy polenta, Parmesan polenta. I feel like maybe if you found like a shrimp and grits recipe that uses, because that's like similar.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And also I know like adding, I don't know about, I haven't done it with polenta, but sometimes you can just add either whole spices or some bits of like herbs in with the liquid to kind of infuse the flavor while you're cooking something. So maybe doing something like that would help, or even like cooking something with a flavorful broth instead of water, if it calls for water as the cooking liquid, that can add something extra that's a little interesting. I don't use polenta a ton, but I know my father-in-law was from Calabria, Italy, and his family was super poor, and they used to do the thing where they would pour the polenta on the table and spread it around, and people would just, they would just kind of like scoop it up because it was, inexpensive and like peasants' food. And then it got bougie at some point, and yeah, but there's definitely, I feel like, who I would go to for polenta, Lydia Bastignach. And I have some of her cookbooks if you want me to
actually do. Let me check. Maybe I have.
Yeah, because she, like, her Italian recipes, like, hands down, always delicious. So I would trust whatever she recommends. That would be my go-to.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Before the time gets away from me, just a reminder, Tuesday, February 22nd at 6, we're going to make toasted farro grain bowls with roasted winter veggies. Feel free to, I have all the events listed on my events page on my website, or the library calendar has this and many, many more events. But that one will be at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you don't have to cook along, but you're welcome to. You can just hang out and chat while I cook, but then you'll see the food and you won't be able to eat it. If you cook along, you'll see it and you'll get to smell it and you'll get to eat it. But everybody's welcome. All ages, you know, it's a fun time always. And then Tuesday, March 8th at 7, we're going to do this, but with eggs. And there's so many ways you can go with eggs. So that should be interesting. I haven't picked the recipe for that cooking class yet, but I was telling Diana before we started, there's like recipes with eggs that are very quick cooking. And then there are some that are very slow cooking, and our classes are about an hour. So I'm trying to figure out like the best thing to do to take up about an hour. So to be determined. I have time for like one more book, unless anybody else has one that they would like to share. If you would, totally open. All right, feel free to cut me off, because really, you've heard me talk plenty. This book, I have mixed feelings, not because of the content of the book, but because, so it's called Vegan Bowl Attack. More than 101 dish meals packed with plant-based power. I love the concept, but it's called Vegan Bowl Attack. And in my opinion, and this is just an opinion, putting something in a bowl does not make it a bowl recipe. So a bowl of waffle sticks, in my opinion, I'm not a cookbook author though, yet. So so I was like, maybe it's just this. But then it's like, mini Cinny rolls with cashew cream cheese drizzle. So they've put cinnamon rolls in a bowl, which
I'm agreeing with you. That's not a real.
I mean, so I'm like, well, maybe it's probably just a couple. And then it's like, there's a lot of like, okay, these sound, again, I'm not taking away from the content of the recipes because they sound delicious. I'm not vegan, but I would eat a lot of these things. Plantain tots con mojo sounds and looks delicious. But I mean, it's just in a bowl. There's also another bowl inside. I try to keep the snarkiness in check, but like, I mean, tikka cauliflower chunks, again, looks and sounds delicious, but like, put those on a plate.
That should be like a plating instead, like plating inside a bowl or something.
Yes.
It's, you know.
Vegan ways to plate things in bowls.
Plate, yeah.
So it's just kind, I mean, it's kind of funny to me. There are things that, yes. So like there's a walnut chorizo taco salad. And I've had before, when you grind up like in a food processor, walnuts, they can get the texture of like ground beef without being meat. And you season them with taco seasonings. And that's like, it's a really interesting and actually like filling and satisfying type. I haven't tried this particular recipe, but I know that is a good swap. This is a grilled romaine chopped salad that I thought looked really good. That is in a bowl, and it should be in a bowl. I feel that warrants a bowl. And this recipe talks about how like grilling romaine is a really interesting way to do it. So there are some very lovely looking recipes in here. There are many that I think are just in a bowl because they needed filler. I don't know. This one I thought was interesting. It's a quote fish taco bowl, and the fish is hearts of palm. I've seen that used as like fake, like in a lobster roll where it's not lobster, it's hearts of palm. And I've eaten hearts of palm. They're in the canned vegetable aisle. The texture I feel like is very right for that, and the flavor is pretty mild. So I bet that something like this would be very reminiscent of that. And especially like I know for sure at least one person in this room that doesn't like seafood. So I feel like maybe that would be something that you would be into. Not to call. I'm
I'm
not
not
calling.
into hearts of palm either.
Okay, well that's fair. Or like this looks delicious, Mexican chocolate creme brulee with candied mango. Is that pushing the bowl thing? I mean, it's ceramic and you have to, I mean, I feel like this is more a bowl than waffle sticks in a bowl, but
Yeah, putting one ingredient in a bowl does not count.
like wedge salad with pepita bacon. Like, so it's a wedge of iceberg and like, again, I'm sure very delicious. So I don't know, sometimes that kind of made me laugh in this instance, but there are tons of great books. I didn't even talk about like pho, which is a Vietnamese, like one of my favorite dishes, Vietnamese noodle soup. Has to be in a bowl because it's a soup. And this book has a lot of really great information about pho and like making it at home and different pronunciations for different types, which is if you want to like really impress a native speaker, because it looks like faux, but I guess if there's a little curly thing here, I don't know the technical name for it, but there's a whole bit on how to do that properly, and ways to get adventurous with different ingredients and types of broth and how to pick different meats and all that. So there's tons of great books at the library. And if you live in Westchester or in another place that has a large library system, you can often online put a hold on a book and have it delivered to the library that's in your town. So like this book is from the Chappaqua Library. I live in Ossining. This one's from Mount Vernon. So I got like all these books and I just did it from the website. I was like up late at night. I'm like, I want to put these bowl books in there. And then I just got text messages or emails when they came in and it was great.
It's like magic, isn't it?
It's one. I mean, I love the cookbook section of the library. So
yeah. And I'm just going to say too, if anybody has like a favorite cookbook, I'm definitely open to suggestions. If we don't own it, you can email me or on our website and our the LibGuide that I put the link in for the virtual potluck. I don't know if it's there actually. You can suggest a book for us to buy and I can check it out, look at it, see it, and usually I can get it. So yeah, this is, I mean, from our conversations, I've bought a lot of new cookbooks from what Ashley's recommended. So yeah, definitely come in and check it out or go online and check out the great cookbook collection. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for joining. Does anybody have any last minute urgent bowl questions that you need to be answered?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Please.
Sometimes if you're out of an ingredient, it's like the best thing because you can come up with creative ways to replace it.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was out of olive oil and I really wanted to roast some sweet potatoes. And so I went in my refrigerator and I had some sesame ginger vinaigrette and I tossed them in that and then roasted them and they got so caramelized and yummy. And I'm thinking those would have been great in a bowl.
Yeah, that's a great use of a condiment too. Like there are so many different things floating around in your refrigerator. Try it.
So I thought it'd be fun sometime to have a challenge, even if you're not out of something, see how creative you can get with a replacement.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It's like very good ways to get you to think outside of the box or the bowl, even if it belongs in a bowl. Thank you all.
I love that. That's a program right there. That's great. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.